Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing a deep dive into an absolutely fascinating chapter explaining two of India's most iconic indigenous sports, Kabaddi and Kho-Kho. We're talking about games that require literally zero equipment. Forget about expensive gear, right? All you need for these is some dirt, human agility, strategic brilliance, and, well, the willingness to get tackled in the dust. Plus, in one case, you're going to need some serious lung capacity. So whether you grew up playing these or you've only just caught a glimpse of them in modern stadiums, we're going to break down exactly how these ancient games function as highly competitive sports. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. At their core, these two sports might seem kind of similar, because they're both high-energy, tag-based games, but mechanically, they are entirely different beasts. On one side, we've got Kabaddi, which is a fiercely physical game of attack and defense. You have a lone raider entering enemy territory to tag opponents and then frantically try to escape back home. On the flip side, there's Kho-Kho. This is the ultimate game of chasers and runners. It's all about high-speed pursuit, tactical handoffs, and dodging. So one is about breaking through a defensive wall, while the other is just a relentless, fast-paced chase.
Think of today's explainer as your ultimate crash course study guide. Here's how we're going to break it down. First, the indigenous sports of India. Second, Kabaddi's history and rules. Third, Kabaddi's skills and tactics. Fourth, we switch gears to Kho-Kho's history and rules. Fifth, Kho-Kho's skills and tactics. And finally, number 6, mastering the chase.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Indigenous Sports of India. Now, these games definitely weren't invented in corporate boardrooms. They were born right in the villages and small towns of India, specifically designed to be inexpensive and accessible to literally everyone. Tracing their evolution is actually stunning. Kabaddi might date all the way back to prehistoric survival tactics to fend off animal attacks, or it might link to the Chakra Vyuha military formation from the Mahabharata. Meanwhile, Kho-Kho's rules were formally framed a bit later, in 1914. But the crucial shared milestone for both of these? 1936. Both sports were demonstrated internationally at the Berlin Olympics by the Hanuman Vyam Prasarak Mandal. So, from local villages to the first Kabaddi World Cup in 2004, they have steadily climbed the global sports ladder.
Moving right along to Section 2, Kabaddi's history and rules.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the meticulous standardization of the sport today. You can notice the slight variations between the men's and women's dimensions here. For the men, the court is 13 by 10 meters with two 20-minute halves. The women play on a slightly tighter 12 by 8-meter court with two 15-minute halves. And in both cases, the teams switch sides after a 5-minute interval. It's a very compact, highly regulated battlefield.
Looking at the visual blueprint of that battlefield, you've got the midline dividing the two halves, along with the balk line and the bonus line. But what's really fascinating is how the physical surface itself has evolved. Traditionally, this court was dug at least a foot deep outdoors and filled with fine river or beach sand. Why? So players wouldn't get completely destroyed when they were tackled or slammed to the ground. Today, though, urban arenas and professional leagues use synthetic mats for maximum safety and, of course, maximum speed.
To truly understand Kabaddi, you have to know two essential terms. The first is the cant. When the lone raider attacks the opponent's half, they have to hold their breath and continuously chant Kabaddi, Kabaddi, Kabaddi in one single breathless expiration. No gasping allowed. It requires incredible lung control while you're performing extreme physical exertion. The second term is lona. If your team manages to tag out every single player on the opposing team, you don't just get regular points, you are awarded a lona, which is a massive 2-point bonus. It's basically the ultimate strategic reward for a total defensive wipeout.
All right, that brings us to Section 3, Kabaddi's skills and tactics.
So, when a raider crosses the midline, they deploy this wild arsenal of offensive skills, trying to tag opponents while staying just barely out of reach. While running hand touches are super common, leg work is absolute king here. A sudden toe touch allows the raider to strike from a considerable distance. And then you have the kicks, back kicks, side kicks, and the famous curve kick, which is often called a mule kick. It's this sudden airborne blow designed to tag flanking defenders when they literally least expect it. But the defenders, who are known as the actis, well, they aren't just standing around. They're deploying counter tactics to trap the raider. If the raider thrusts a leg for a toe touch, the defense might execute a rapid ankle hold to lift and pull the raider right back. They rely on thigh holds, waist holds, and wrist holds. But for sure, the most dramatic maneuver of all is blocking. This is where the defensive players coordinate their bodies to create a literal wall of obstruction in the raider's path, trapping them on their side of the court before they can even think about retreating across the midline. Okay, let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, Coco's History and Rules.
Now, we are trading the wrestling-like tactics of Kabaddi for absolute blistering speed. And the history here is genuinely wild. Back in the ancient era in Maharashtra, a version of this game was actually known as Rathira. And get this, it was played on actual chariots. Over time, obviously, the chariots were dropped, and it evolved into the highly demanding foot chase we see today. Now it is played on a rectangular pitch measuring 27 by 16 meters with 2 wooden poles planted at either end.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what makes Coco so mechanically unique. Notice how the seated team is lined up straight down the middle of the court, but adjacent players are facing in completely opposite directions. Only one active chaser is actually standing up. This setup isn't just for show, guys. It is the entire strategic engine of the game.
So, here is how that engine actually works across 2 innings of 9-minute chasing and running turns. The active chaser is heavily restricted. They can only run in one direction, and they absolutely cannot cut across that central line of sitters. The runners, however, can dodge and weave wherever they want. So how on earth does the chaser catch them? By basically passing the baton. The chaser runs up to his sitting teammate whose back is facing them, touches them, and shouts, "Ko." Instantly, that sitter explodes upward to become the new chaser, while the old chaser takes their spot on the ground. It is just a rapid-fire relay of pursuit.
Which leads us right into Section 5, Coco's Skills and Tactics. Because of those super strict movement rules we just talked about, offensive chasers have to rely on bursts of highly controlled speed. Giving call efficiently without losing your momentum is an art form all in itself. Then there is pole turning. When the chaser reaches the wooden pole at the end of the court, they have to navigate around it rapidly, often using a precise 4-step or 5-step turn just to maintain their attack without breaking those directional rules. And when they finally get close to a runner, you'll see these dramatic flat dives and side dives, extending their body completely parallel to the ground just to get a shoulder or heel tap on the runner.
But don't count the runners out, because they are masters of deception. Their entire goal is to survive the 9 minutes by completely exhausting the chasers. They do this using very specific running patterns. For example, the chain game involves running in a zigzag path, forcing the attackers to constantly pass the ha back and forth, burning up precious time and energy. Then there's the ring game, which involves running in a wide oval shape to maintain a safe distance. Combine this with rapid shoulder and foot dodging, and a good runner can make an attacker look incredibly slow and honestly, incredibly frustrated.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, Mastering the Chase. So the crucial point is that both Kabaddi and Coco share a really beautiful DNA. They require absolutely no equipment, they test the absolute limits of human stamina, and they were built by and for everyday people in villages. Fast forward to today, with the establishment of the Pro Kabaddi League in 2014 and massive international tournaments across both sports, these ancient survival tactics are now primetime entertainment under bright arena spotlights. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other ancient, equipment-free games are just waiting in the wings to capture the world's attention next? Keep that in mind the next time you see an empty patch of sand. I really hope this explainer gave you a deep appreciation for the mechanics of these incredible sports.